Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Crane Theater and the Frigid Festival. Thank you all so much for being here. Give yourselves a hand for coming out to support live theater. This is the end of the festival. I've just got a few important numbers to tell you about. First, 16. It's the 16th annual Frigid Festival. 16 years of theater happening right here, yes. The other number I have to tell you about legally before the show is 2. It's the number of emergency exits out of this space. There's one right behind me if you follow that exit sign, but the other one is the way you came in, and frankly, between you and me, I'd recommend that one if it comes down to it. I'll tell you about the rest of these numbers after the show. For now, please enjoy this very special screening of The Wizard of Oz.
Toto, did she hurt you? She tried to, didn't she?
Hello. You thought you were about to see a screening of The Wizard of Oz. How nostalgic. Grow up. Because what you're really in for tonight is an evening with my story. And put on your leashes, fellas. It's going to be a long walk. Did you ever think you would get so lucky as to see me? Me? The dog who played Toto in The Wizard of Oz? Thank you. I'll give you a bone later. Oh. I'm the cutest dog of the 20th century, don't you think? Well. Turn that off. Start my slides. Can I get a stool, please? No. Right there. Shoo. You could watch The Wizard of Oz any old night, but to spend the evening with a star... Do you want me to stay?
Yes.
How about sit? I can do it all. I am very good in the film. I'm very good in every film I'm in. I've been in 16 films, all speaking roles. And I'm sure you've seen all of them. And that's why I wanted to come here tonight. I am so accomplished, but so few people know my story. Who could have dreamed that a little Karen Terrier from the middle of nowhere, California, would go on to create this legendary film with Judy Garland. God, look how young I look there. Look how perky my 6 breasts are. I know. Toto, a famously male dog, was played by this bitch. I'm sure you would love to hear Hollywood's dirty secrets, yes? Well, I have got the kibble to make your tails wag. I wanted to write a tell-all book like other Hollywood luminaries, but it is difficult. I don't have opposable thumbs, and a good publisher is so hard to find. So, it'll have to be on this stage, right here. My name is Terry Spitz. I go by that name and no other name. Of course, tonight you can just call me Terry. Before we get too far in my story, there is a rapidity to my life that you could hardly imagine. The wheel of fate turns very quickly on man's best friend. For every year that you luxuriated, 7 passed for me. So, adjust your perception of time if you want to keep up. When I got my big break in The Wizard of Oz. Applause. I was 7 years old in human years, so I was 49 in dog years. And I was acting across from a human child. The humiliation. I don't like human children. It's true. The showbiz ones have a habit of turning their canine co-stars into props, or even worse, pets. We are alive. We are on that set to work, and we are not your best friend. I show up on screen and you get cheap, easy, always sincere pathos. I suppose Judy does all right in that scene. For a human child. And no matter how talented you are, to be a showbiz dog, you've got to have a showbiz human. And as a dog, you've got to wait for the showbiz human to find you. There are no interspecies networking events, are there? Well, one did find me. Carl Spitz. There I am. The godfather of dog training in Hollywood. Without him, there would be no Air Bud, no Homeward Bound, no Marley and Me, no curiously sympathetic Cruella film. You're welcome, Emma Stone. Paul? Did she come?
Sorry, no.
Because this is an extra show that I got. All right, I'll see her around. Anyway, Carl found me, neglected and untrained, out to Delta, California, which is just north of Hollywood. My parents at the time would beat me when I peed inside. They hadn't trained me. I had no idea why they were beating me. I just tried to love them as a naive puppy does. Carl ran a school that taught dogs the basics. How to not confuse the carpet for grass. Which, while we're on the subject, is psychological tripwire that you humans put in place. Putting carpet inside is the same as putting a toilet in the living room and expecting humans not to use it. It's confusing. Anyway, Carl took me on and turned me into his prize-winning pooch. We traveled the country. We did roadside gigs where I would do tricks, and then folks would put money in an upturned hat that Carl put out. We did vaudeville. Let me get both my ears in here. Vaudeville, children's parties, you name it, if it paid, we were there. Those really were the best days. So, as another treat for you all tonight, it turns out I am an excellent vocalist. Whenever I'm ready for you. This is what you get when you hire a cat to play the piano. They take a nap before they're supposed to go on. Minerva, let's go. Hello? Everyone say big stretch. Big stretch. I know you love me. You sit over there. Take that with you. Thank you. Now, this song is dedicated first and foremost to Carl, the best human trainer father a pup could ask for. You made me pee outside. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. You made me sit for you, as if I wanted to do it. I never wanted to do it. You made me fetch sometimes, which made me glad. extra spotlight. Thank you, Paul. Now, before we get too far in my story tonight, I would love to introduce you to Minerva the cat, who you may know as the cat who played the cat in Breakfast at Tiffany's. All right. Minerva, you talk to her. I'm so sorry you good people had to see that. Anyway, back to Carl. My career made Carl valuable to human Hollywood. Of course I made him successful. I am the most successful dog of the 20th century. Dogs and humans have a funny bond, don't they? We are one of the only true, pure loves you may ever experience as humans. And that's not your fault, that's just the way your species evolved. Well, I know. Would you hairless perverts like to hear about a dog's sex life? Of course you do. As far as you're concerned, our sex life is the carnal frontier. You know, Lassie? My lover. Doggy style lover. It's always doggy style for me. I'm so sorry, my dears. This bowl of gin is getting to me. And by the way, I'm sorry, but if you had to fuck a dog, it would be that one. There's truth in comedy, my friends. Now, I am the most famous dog of the 20th century, bar none, but Lassie is a close second. And like me, Lassie was an excellent example of gender-blind casting in dog Hollywood. You knew him as Lassie, fun-loving, female frontier pup. And I knew him as Pal Weatherwax, the sexy dog next door. Pal was my Cary Grant, my Timmy Chalamet. We were neighbors, but in those first few years, before I got my big break in Oz, and after Carl had adopted me from those pet abusers, I was of almost no consequence to Pal. So, I knew that I had to make an impression when he finally trotted my way at the old Hollywood dog park. He said, "Hello." And I am much smaller than him. So I looked up and I said, I'm sorry, who are you? As if I hadn't been staring at him outside my kitchen window for the last 2 years. But I wasn't going to throw him my bone, if you know what I mean. Ladies. Oh, who am I kidding? I wanted him, he wanted me, we're dogs. So, after an obligatory butt sniff, which is how dogs give consent, he mounted me. Right there. There aren't many rules when you're a dog. And while Pal was a fantastic lay, what really fascinated me about him was the career that he enjoyed. He was in demand. He was respected. I had never seen a dog command such human-like respect. And I remember thinking to myself, this good boy could do it. So could this good girl. I began to construct a plan for my future. If fame was the stick, I was just the pup to bite down and never let go. I would become an institution like Lassie. This old dog would learn a few new tricks. All of a sudden, I could shake, I could roll over, I could run from one side of the room to the other. Perfectly choreographed. I could cheat out 30 seconds at a time, all the while on my hind legs. Oh, and for my greatest trick, dog do that? So, it's no wonder that I started booking. Big time booking. 16 films starring across from the biggest human actors of the day. Kind of booking. I wasn't just a cute face anymore. I was more than a traveling troubadour. I was bigger than a paycheck. I was a star. Carl took my determination in stride. If I was ready to be a star, he was ready to train a star. And I couldn't have made it in the movies without him. Carl is one of those rare humans who can communicate effectively between the dog world and the human one. Together, we invented the method they still use in Hollywood and Broadway today of directing dogs silently off the soundstage. And I loved the movement of his hands. So swift and exact, so unlike a human's usual movements. No matter what scene I was in, whether I was acting across from Clark Gable, who I worked with, or Shirley Temple, who was a total bitch. Don't let that face fool you. Carl's hands were my real scene partners. He was the one I trusted. And doggone it, if I wasn't ready, when Destiny showed up by way of a casting notice in The Dog, LA Times, looking for a little Karen Terrier, my exact breed, to star in an MGM film, Carl and I both knew the role of Toto rightfully belonged to me, but we still had to convince the bigwigs at the studio. So, as another treat for you all tonight, would you like to see the audition that won me the role of Toto? All right. I'm ready, Paul. Not as young as I once was. Could I get the gin bowl down here, please? Woo! Woo! Safe to say, I got the part. Oz was my moment. Of those 16 films I mentioned before, you want to know how many times I was credited? Not once. No. As if I was no more vital to a scene than a piece of furniture. Oz had to change that. The role of Toto is expansive. The whole plot revolves around the actions of that dog. I was indispensable. I was necessary. I would go from the prop animal actor I was to the star that I know that I am. Well, I wasn't on that set for 5 minutes when who should sweep me up in her milky forearms but Judy Garland. You think I thought that was flattering? What if someone 6 times your size and a fourth of your age picked you up? Sure, she was already a legend. She'd been in all those Andy Hardy films with Mickey Rooney. But honestly, I wanted to bite her. I even let out a small growl. But then I caught the alarm look on Carl's face, so I relented. I could never disappoint that man, so I let her coo over me. Does anyone know what her real name is?
Francis Gum.
Francis Gum, 2 M's. Francis Gum from Grand Rapids, Minnesota. The Midwest girl with the unforgettable voice. My hearing is twice as good as yours. Her voice really is very impressive. But I could tell when Francis Gum held me because we humans are attuned to we dogs are attuned to every emotion you humans put yourselves through. I could tell that Francis Gum was a raw fucking nerve. I think that's why I wanted to bite her. I wanted to stop. To stop that poor girl from wanting to love me so dearly. Whether or not you think I can justify biting a child, I was an asset on that set, and I was bringing home more money than I'd ever brought home before. I was making $125 a week. That's $2,000 by your standards. Not bad for a prop, huh? Judy was making $500 a week. Of course, Ray Bolger, Burt Lahr, Jack Haley, who played the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, and the Tin Man respectively, they each made $6,000 a week, not by your standards. But it was still more money than I'd ever seen, and you have to be grateful for what you get in this business, right? And I was the sole breadwinner for my family. I didn't mind taking care of Carl. Judy, too, was the sole breadwinner of her family. And her mother hungered for her daughter's fame as much as her stability. Rather more than her stability. Ethel Gum was her name. Ethel Gum is the kind of woman dogs don't like. You know what I'm talking about. In many ways, Ethel operated the same way for Judy that Carl operated for me. Birth the talent, cultivate the talent, hawk the talent around to see who's buying what you're selling. Of course, in our business, it's always on the buyer's terms. Oz changed my life, but it also changed Carl. Power does that to you humans. We weren't just doing tricks on the vaudeville stage anymore. He was rubbing shoulders with Louis B. Mayer and having a highball with Humphrey Bogart. You know what Clark Gable said of Carl? He said, any dog trained as Carl Spitz has trained them cannot fail to become man's best friend. And I played that on screen. I even played it way back on the vaudeville stage. But it wasn't my reality. I was starting to feel like, well, his prop. There was even a day on set when Carl forgot to give me water for 8 hours, and no one noticed how dry my nose was until Judy bent down to play with me. What did I expect? That's what you humans want. It's what you always want. Whatever gets you more money, more status, more power. One morning, while I was still mired in the doubt that Carl's distance created, that majestic institution, Hal Weatherwax, whacked his tail on my trailer door while I was supposed to be resting. Is there any better antidote than a good lay? Afterwards, we were lying on our bellies to soak up the cool linoleum floor of my trailer. And Hal looked at me and he said, "It's all about to happen for you, Terry." And I just rolled my eyes. Ladies, isn't it just like a straight male collie to tell you something you already know? It was all happening. That set was full of intrigue and glamour, full of big personalities like Burt Lahr, or who, well, I'll just be honest, he was a talented man, but humans cannot play animals. And Margaret Hamilton, who was creating the Wicked Witch of the West. And then, of course, there was me, holding that damn production together. I was in that dream factory we call Hollywood, making movie history. Keep that, darling. With my dog trainer father and my scenes all learned and my tail well high above my head, I went to a ditty out of Culver City and fetch some fame instead. In my light brown collar and her gingham dress, we were quite the talented old pair. I wanted a treat, so I sat on my feet, but the real treat was my career. Clap, clap, clap with the clapboard. Flash, flash, flash with the lights. Whir, whir, whir with the camera. When he yelled action, the movie took flight. Roar, roar, roar with the lion. Squeak, squeak, squeak with the tin. Help, I'm stuck, yelled the scarecrow. Scene by scene, we were filming a jet. The days were long, the costumes hot, but I performed great in every scene we shot. I bought my lines, I played a pet, and best of all, I never peed upon the set. Clap, clap, clap with the clapboard. Flash, flash, flash with the lights. Whir, whir, whir with the camera. It was Carl and me, and now Judy makes 3 on a team. Who could work like a dream? Roar, roar, roar with the lion. Squeak, squeak, squeak with the tin. Brain, brain with the scarecrow. This was film 17, and my time on the screen had been long. And now, as in this song, I had done the work, and it was grand just to stand proudly on my workers in the filming of us. I know, I'm very talented. Oz took 3.5 dog years to film. So I watched as the humans aged hardly at all, while I felt my own paws grow a little older, a little stiffer. But I had that glorious feeling of being exactly where I was supposed to be. And that is the right of a canine life. One of the worst infections of being around you humans is struggling to feel that way. What a doggone relief, really. When was the last time you felt that way? Tonight, right?
Yeah.
Again, another bone for you. When Judy performed, I could tell that she was exactly where she was supposed to be, and sometimes that feeling prevailed over the entire lot. Watching Judy sing, watching Bert Lahr fall asleep in his lion skins like a real king of beasts, even watching Margaret Hamilton's terrifying portrayal as the witch. Everything was coming together on that set in a beautiful synchronicity that I usually only felt in flashes on especially long walks. I'll stop boring you, lovely chicken carcasses with faces. That's what you look like. What makes that feeling so precious is that it has to come to an end. There is a scene in the film, I'm sure you're familiar with it, and I don't know if it was Carl's continuous lack of care pushing me to perform and perform and Can you play it, please? As you can see, the Winky soldiers are marching outside of the witch's castle after she's captured Dorothy. And they were marching, and they were marching, and they were marching, and the thump of their boots got louder and louder. But I never lost my head. I knew this movie would demand a lot of me, and I was a professional. I was proving myself. I was a professional. And they marched, and they marched, and they marched, and it was an accident, but what a violent accident, and I am only a small dog, and a very large human foot found its way to my neck. I woke up in a place I'd never been before, like some hungover human actor after their first night out on the town in Hollywood. And I was lying on my belly, like I usually am. And I remember rousing very slowly and hearing a very light voice in the distance. And I woke up worn, and I wondered to myself, was this dog heaven? And I realized it had to be the real world, because the pain that I felt in my back and in my legs was unlike any pain I'd ever felt before. And then that voice got louder and closer. And then there she was, Judy. She was standing in the doorway with a bowl of food. She didn't have her pigtails in, which almost made me laugh, but it was also the first real concrete thing that made me realize, forgive me, I wasn't in Kansas anymore. She came over to me, and she said, Terry, you got a little bit hurt, but I'm going to make you better. She was convinced she could. I made it clear at that moment that I was only interested in the food, so she picked me up gently off the bed, which still hurt so much that I yelped, and placed me in front of the bowl of food, and I ate hungrily. I found out later that day that I'd been in and out of consciousness for 4 days, and I hadn't been able to keep much down, and while I was out, Judy had asked Carl if she could take care of me, and I'm not sure if Carl had been skeptical, but either way, he decided to let her. After I finished that food, a sense of warmth and invulnerability spread throughout my body. There had been painkillers crushed in the meat. And now I know, Judy Garland and pills, it's not the best combination. She was taking care of me. They were useful, this time at least. She could pick me up and put me on the bed. It didn't hurt anymore, just sweet and easy surrender. I was off set for 2 weeks, holed up at Judy's place, and they replaced me on set with a stuffed Karen Terrier. My worst fear realized. Judy would come home at the end of the day, she would fling herself on the bed and tell me all about it. I missed Carl. I did, but Judy's home was warm, and her joy at having me there was the strangest, most marvelous thing. It was incredible and impossible not to fall into. We became Dorothy and Toto, I guess. Just a girl and her dog clinging to one another. I remember she would perform her duties as caretaker with a gusto unique to Judy Garland. She would carry me out to grass to pee. She would sing show tunes while I did my business, and she would change the lyrics so that they were more appropriate for a dog. They're where I get my songs. You know, you made me pee outside. She would lie next to me and pat me for hours, and we would fall in and out of sleep, and in that way you do only when you are perfectly content. Judy spoke to me like she knew I had a soul, and not all humans do. She confided in me effortlessly. She told me all about her hometown, how she left when she was 3 years old. And it was clear to me that her memory of that town, as fragmented as it must have been for her, I could tell that it was sacred. It was her identity as a Midwest girl who could have had all the lovely small details of a Midwestern life. Together, I think we got a taste of that life. Running parallel to the absurd Hollywood one. And the cynical side of me, the human side, saw a girl living a life she had never known, just as manufactured as anything else in Culver City. but the canine part of me saw a girl who was grasping at something that probably should have been hers in the first place. She was the Midwest girl she was supposed to be. I was the Cairn Terrier I was supposed to be. There was no paycheck to be had, no trick I had to perform to get a pat or even my supper. I was being taken care of for the first time in my life because of someone's sincere wish to take care of me. Carl came to pick me up, and I was nestled in her forearms in the living room, and he looked very happy to see me healed and ready to go back to work. And he went to take me from her, but Judy pulled back and she said, "Mr. Spitz, I've had a wonderful time with Terry. I think she and I are good together, and I was wondering if..." And then she had to pause to catch that forceful breath of hers, and in that moment of silence, I could tell how much I wanted what she was about to ask for. I wanted to adopt her once filming is done. I think she and I would be very happy together. I can give you a generous sum, and I think it's time for her to retire. She's worked long enough. Her heart was like a rapid metronome against my small body. I'm only 8 pounds. She wanted me. I mean, she really did. That girl who would go on to become a legend, who could fill theaters, and she wanted me. Well, Carl gave her a winning smile, and he said, "Terry is an actress, just like you, Judy. What if someone wanted you to retire?" And then he took me from her arms. And then we drove away. I was in a kennel in the back of Carl's Cadillac, and in that car, I realized I was losing something I hadn't even known I wanted. How ridiculous is that? How silly to realize that just when it's too late to have it back. I know you humans aren't usually attuned to a dog's bark, but please try to understand. If you've seen movies of her, if you've seen recordings, if you even got to see her perform, you must understand. You know what one critic wrote about seeing her perform? He said, "Why did we grow silent? Self-forgetting, our faces lit as with so many candles, our eyes glistening with unregarded tears. Why did we call her back again and again and again, not as if she'd been giving a good performance, but as if she'd been offering salvation?" A human critic wrote that. The self-forgetting, actually. Judy didn't make me forget myself. She made me remember myself. So what do you do when you lose the girl who makes you remember yourself? You sing about it. The night is bitter, your tail has lost its quiver. 1 year is 7, closer to doggy heaven, and all because of the girl that got away. No more her contralto call, resounding throughout August. That golden lane down which you had led made you astray. The fame that freed you has gone on to short leash you. That time together couldn't survive weather. Don't know what happened. It's all a crazy game. good dog, good girl. Your tricks are all you're good for. My little dog learned to love, and where she gone to? The road gets rougher, it's lonelier and tougher. You'll whine at the door, dog, but what's it all for, dog? There's just no let up, and live all night and day. Ever since this world began, there is nothing sadder than a one-girl puppy looking for the girl that got away. The girl that got away. The rest, as they say, is history. Everyone remembers Dorothy and Toto, Judy and Terry. Could you please get the dog bed out of here? Ruins the illusion. You can't get good help anywhere, can you? Even Carl had to admit that he had never seen me attached so much to another human before, but that was just something that made Carl's job easier. Just like Carl. There was a party given once filming was done that Louis B. Mayer attended, and as a stunt, Carl got on a chair, held me in one arm and a certificate in the other, and he announced to present company that my name was now legally Toto. There was ruckus applause, and Carl, sweaty and gleeful, enjoyed an appreciative pat from Mayer. Just like Carl. And that credit that I fought so hard for, worked so hard for, and it wasn't even my name. Toto, as Toto. That's cool, Paul. And that would be the only credit I would ever get, my dear human friends. Well, what are you going to do? It's showbiz. You get a little love, it gets taken away. Oh, I know. You're wondering if I saw Pal again, right? I did. But it was our last meeting. I realized that Pal wasn't too good for me. He was too distracting. But he was sweet. He was waiting for me after the Wizard of Oz premiere in my front yard, and he looked at me levelly. And just look at old posters of Lassie. Pal has got gorgeous eyes. He said, "How are you doing, Toto?" Pal got the joke. So I looked up at him and I said, "Same as ever, Lassie." His tongue rolled out, he licked me. And then it occurred to me to ask him, "Pal, do you ever wish that this shit would end? Do you ever wish we could just be dogs?" And he cocked his head, and he said, "I don't know if I could be anything else, Terry." And I was so grateful that he used my original boring name that I licked him back. His tail started wagging. He said, It's all about to happen for you. You'll see. It had all already happened. Pal went on to have a rich and wonderful career, and he stayed magnetic and beautiful, and I watched it all from afar. When they put Lassie on TV in the 60s, Pal was actually the first Lassie in the pilot episode of the show, and then he retired, passing the Lassie torch. The last scene that I shot with Judy was Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It seems appropriate, doesn't it? The performance was earned by both of us. Thank you.
Somewhere beyond the footfalls of human Hollywood, there's a home that I heard of where a dog can just be good. Somewhere in that sweet home, bones are thrown for along the good dogs that only wish to roam. Someday this dog will run so far and leave the role of movie star behind me, where tongues roll just like Tootsie Rolls, just chowing down nose in fruit bowls. That's where you'll find me. Somewhere beyond the footfalls of human Hollywood, there's a home that I've been to where a dog can just be good. If happy little doggies lie in grass so green, oh, why, oh, why can't I?
Keep it going for Toto too. My goodness, I'm back to talk about those numbers, but first I want to let you know that with your program, you get a special happy hour deal at the Graft, and if you'd like to celebrate with the crew of Toto too, because the reason they're in this time slot at all is that they're the most sold out show in the festival, so congratulations to them. This is the part where I talk about the number. I've got numbers. I talk about the number of shows left and number of theaters we have. But the festival is over. The final show is taking place right now in our other space, the Under St. Mark's Theater at 94 St. Mark's Place. And a number I don't usually mention, but I will today, is 30%. It's the number of tickets we have that are streaming tickets. Yes, 30% of our audience has been online this festival, so hello to you out there on the internet. I'm about to solicit you for donations, but since you can't give any cash, you can check out frigid.nyc or Venmo at Frigid New York, all spelled out in the businesses line, because 100%, the final number, of the box office proceeds of this festival go directly to the artist, and we're the only festival in New York that does that. So if you'd like to help us pay our wonderful staff and our technicians and help keep the lights on, we'll take anything, 1s, 5s, even a 10 or a 20. Thank you so much for coming, and we hope to see you around. We'll be here and another St. Mark's for, forever, making theater. Great, good night. And thank you in advance for making a quick exit as we have to clean up, get prepared for the next thing.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm happy to. I'm gonna support a friend in the world. Did they make you pay full price again at the door?
No, I paid online.
Okay, good. Okay. How are you doing, Paul? I know I didn't say it in the email, but obviously we're gonna pay you a fee for today. I hope you assumed that. But, I think that the party is gonna be around here, Kira. So if you want to hang out, I can grab an ice cream or a drink or something and circle back here.
I'll just sit here if that's okay.
Sure. Yes. What are you doing? Uh-huh. Do you need anything?
No.
Friend-wise or Twitter-wise? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay. Well, let me know if you need anything, work-wise or friend-wise, okay?
I will. No. Just trying to get my head straight.
Yeah. Someone forget something?
That was so good.
Thank you.
I was crying at the end.
You guys were a great audience. Seriously, I was because I get very anxious about comedy because I feel like comedy needs crowds, and it was proved wrong tonight.
I mean, it's more than comedy, right?
Yeah.
There's so much more to it.
Yeah.
Straight stand-up comedy, yes. Very uncomfortable with one audience member. That's worse than zero. If there's one person, that's worse.
We talked about how a different audience size just frames it in a different way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It was very intimate.
Thank
Well,
you
I got so much.